97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Caplan, powered by InsideTheBirds.com.
I think we have the ability to do something really special with this group, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Inside the Birds podcast dropped this morning, of course. Adam Caplan joins us every Thursday here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Football at 4, InsideTheBirds.com, Inside the Birds podcast, as he and Jeff Mosher started giving you great insights on the 53-man roster. And as always, Adam Caplan joins us on the Boardwalk on the hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Adam, how you doing this Thursday?
Guys, good to talk to you. Yeah, it is Thursday, and 1 week from today, the NFL season opens up, and it's been a long time coming. Tonight, by the way, will be the last day of the preseason games. All teams would be playing tonight, but we don't have any preseason this year.
Which is a bit of a problematic thing, and you brought it up, so I want to ask you about that a little bit, because I know you and Jeff were talking about on the podcast when you guys were projecting this 53-man roster about how the lack of a preseason is having an impact on some of these position groups.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, they cut Manasa Bailey today. I reported about within the last hour. He's an undrafted free agent at Morgan State. He wasn't going to make it anyway. But the problem with the low-end guys, the undrafted free agents, is they're just not going to get enough reps. They're just not having a preseason is really a problem. And then, of course, not having a rookie minicamp in April, not having May OTAs, not having June OTAs, not having a June mandatory camp, and not having preseason. It's just really hard for clubs to, not only the Eagles, but to get an idea of where these young kids at, seventh-round picks, undrafted free agents. Though Casey Tuhill is pushing for a roster spot as a defensive end. It's a guy that I didn't think had a chance to make the roster, but though he's a seventh-round pick, he had a very good camp.
How much do you think also that the lack of the preseason is not just impacting the players on the roster, but also potentially impacts who the Eagles might consider going after when rosters are cut? Because we know usually, you could point to certain guys, say so-and-so had a good preseason or so-and-so has having a good situation. There's a competition battle. You don't have that kind of insight from watching the preseason games this year.
Plus, another thing, Josh, that I would add to that, and I've done this, I've not put a lot of information out on Twitter about who's looking good and who's looking bad in terms of the deep backups, because clubs don't want that out. Because as you just mentioned, they don't have the 4 preseason games to get an idea of how these kids look on tape. And if the reporters don't put this information out, they're not going to get it from clubs because coaches are not giving that information out in their Zoom sessions to the media. So you're right, and it's sort of one of the under-discussed part of information that's coming out in August and early September. Teams simply don't have the same information they would normally have this time of year.
Before we dive into the 53-man roster conversation, there has been news breaking over the last 30 minutes or so about the Eagles and Zach Ertz, and I just want to get your thoughts on everything that's going on with his contract negotiations to this point.
Yeah, look, it hasn't gone well. We've discussed it on Inside the Birds a couple times. So my understanding is the Eagles want to do a deal. If they were going to do one now, it would be similar to the one that the Chiefs got done with Travis Kelce, Jason's brother, obviously. Zach Ertz is a guy that obviously has been tremendous for the Eagles. He was a second-round pick in 2013. Travis Kelce was a third-round pick. Travis is slightly older than Zach, and Travis is just a tremendous football player, but he took a deal that some people around the league kind of criticized, to be honest with you. And we know that Ertz is not going to get a George Kittle's deal. That's the non-starter for the Eagles. But when you look at Kelce's deal, it's not a great deal, and that to me is not a deal that Zach Ertz is going to do. That's my sense of what I've known. But he also has 2 years left on his deal, and if you're Zach, it's never been about this season. It's about getting an extension that gives you fully guaranteed money next year and hopefully some in year 3, where the Eagles can't just walk away from the contract after 2 years. That to me, because remember, the issue here is, and we need to mention this, Dallas Goedert, you could extend his contract if he plays well after the season. All drafted players, you have to wait till they've played 3 years. So if he blows it up this season, the Eagles probably will approach him. And that you have to understand. That's just the way the Eagles do business, and that's really the right way to do it. But from Zach's standpoint, he wants assurances that it is not going to be an extension where the club could get out really quick. So it's challenging. This is sort of what you call the cost of doing business and drafting well and developing. Goddard's a guy the Eagles absolutely love and think is going to be a star. And Zach has been a star. And this is challenging. I've spoken to both sides. I understand where they're at. It's just not easy. It's not an easy contract to get through here. That's going to make both sides happy.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's going to be tough for the Eagles to figure this out, but it does seem like, he's one of those guys that they will figure it out for. It just seems like it is. But you mentioned Dallas Goedert is also right behind him, and he's someone who's clearly been a factor for this team. So we'll see how that all shapes up. I want to get your thoughts on the current injuries with Jalen Reagor, Sanders, and Lane Johnson.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor is not, I'm told, not expected to play week 1. They're not ruling him out for week 2 or 3. I've heard he's doing well coming back from the injury. He's got the small labrum tear, as our Jeff Mosher reported first. And just checking into it, he's doing better. He's feeling better. And it's just going to be range of motion, degree of soreness, and how he manages it. And this is his first injury as a professional. Really tough kid, by the way, from checking into his background. Really hard-nosed like his father, Monte. And, they're going to see over a 2-week period where he's at physically. And then go from there and just see what he could, whether he can contribute or not in weeks 2 or 3.
You mentioned about his pedigree as an NFL player, and I wanted to touch on that because you and Jeff talked about on the podcast something that's very important to me when I was listening, and that is you guys brought up the fact that he made the right play in practice, and it shows you that his mindset and his instincts are in the right place because a lot of times you can't ask a guy to turn it on, quote unquote, in the game, something he wouldn't naturally do in practice. So he actually, he got injured, but the fact that he has the right instincts is also a positive as well.
Right, and it's funny, Josh, I was there at practice last Sunday, and I got to be honest with you, I saw him running to obviously it was an interception from Ertz, but he was running back. I couldn't quite see it from my vantage point where he reached to make the tackle. But I saw him walk off, and I was like, wow, I couldn't tell whether it was his arm, his wrist, or what. And I didn't know it was his shoulder then. To be honest with you, I didn't know that. But you're right. He did the right thing. Can you imagine in the game, and Jeff and I brought this up on our show, you'll recall when Zach Ertz in the Vontaze Burfict situation, when he tried to avoid contact and the media, some of the media actually got on him, the fans got on him, that hurt Zach. Think about it here. If we're in a game and there's an interception and Reagor has the opportunity to make a tackle and he doesn't make it, the fans are going to kill him over, particularly on social media. So you're right. I'm glad you brought that up because he definitely did the right thing.
Injuries are popping up all around with this team. I mentioned Sanders and Lane Johnson, but now Will Parks also went down recently. How big of a loss is that for this team?
It's a big one. Will Parks, I guess there's a report from NFL Network, he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. By the way, so I do want to add this. This was not on our show, but because I had not gotten the information yet, but I got it earlier on Thursday. You could bring back as many players this year as you want on injury reserve, but they must miss a minimum of 3 weeks. So what'll happen here with Will Parks is actually 3 games, not weeks, actually games. But with Will Parks, I'm putting him I'm going to put him on the short-term IR because with that report, 4 to 6 weeks, that's perfect guy so you don't need to take up a roster spot. He's not only is he their third safety, and he's a big nickel player when they go through a 3 safety package. They have a jack linebacker package when they stick the safety in the box. He's one of those guys. Jalen Mills will do some of that. He's going to play some of that Corey Graham role. You might remember that role when they played 3 safeties. He had a huge role in mind. By the way, he had a phenomenal camp. It's too bad. So Marcus Epps should be his replacement. Kayvon Wallace is, from what I understand, a ways away from contributing. He's not. I don't think he's ready yet. The Eagles are high on him, but Marcus Epps is a kid who had a very good camp, and don't forget he was with them last year after he was claimed off waivers from the Vikings.
Adam Caplan joining us here, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Follow Adam on Twitter at Caplan NFL. All your Eagles and NFL coverage. Adam joins the Sports Bash every Thursday for Football at 4 here on 97.3 ESPN. Adam, are there any other guys that you project that could end up on that short-term injured list that the Eagles could use to kind of help them work their final roster?
Yeah, Jannard Avery would be perfect for that because I don't know that he's going to be ready the first quarter of the season. His injury, thank goodness, did not turn out to be a torn ACL. It looked bad, but he's got a bone bruise, and I'm also told that he's got a slight knee sprain. So he would be the perfect guy. That way, it would give them more time to evaluate him. That he would make sense. Andre Dillard obviously is out for the season, so you just put him on IR anyway. And Brandon Brooks, you can't. He's on PUP, so. He's on active. They'll put him on reserve PUP. You can't move a guy on PUP to IR. And Alshon Jeffrey, I do expect Saturday. You can't do it before 4 p.m. Eastern. It's got to be at the 53 cutdown. They cannot put him on IR and then put him on that short-term IR. He's just got to go. He's got to be removed from PUP. If they don't do that, he must miss the first 6 weeks.
What's the current situation with Sidney Jones? Is it possible that he's not even on this team anymore at some point?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Hunter, I don't have him on my 53. I just don't think that he's earned a spot. I think he's got it. We know he's had an injury history. He's been an underachiever, though he's definitely talented. And yeah, he's a former second-round pick, but at this point, I don't think that matters anymore. I think it's just about productivity. And he is in his 4th season. If they do keep him, after the season, he'll be restricted, not unrestricted, because his first year did not count because he was on the non-football injury list too long. So he doesn't get that 1 year added of unrestricted free agency. So, look, the Eagles have – you're right. Guys, they have so many injuries at different positions. You know, it's one thing – if they happen all at one position, you could just go add 3 players. But because you've got Miles Sanders, who will be ready for next week, but he's got an injury. Jeffrey, Rager, Lane Johnson, who's got an ankle injury. I don't know what it is, but he obviously he's not been in practice. But he's going to play next week. Dark Barnett's no lock. By the way, he's got a bad ankle injury. He's no lock to play next week. Javon Hargrave, as Moshe reported that he's got the pectoral strain. And then we just mentioned the 2 guys of Avery and Parks. The problem is it's all spread throughout this roster, and it's a little bit more. It's just a little harder to navigate.
So with that being said about Sidney Jones, is that a situation where the Eagles maybe trade him for a draft pick? Do they try to find maybe some other team that has a guy they're trying to unload as well? You know, what would you think would be the most likely scenario with letting Sidney Jones go if he doesn't if he doesn't make the final roster?
Yeah, it would be a conditional late-round pick, round 5 through 7. Let's say it's a 6th-round pick that could be as much as a 4 for 2021. If he not only makes the roster, he plays a certain amount of snaps for his new team. Now, you could do player for player. If the spots where the Eagles could really use help or an upgrade would be at linebacker, outside corner, obviously to replace Jones, but they're not probably going to get that. And then they really do need it. All of a sudden, they didn't have this issue coming into training camp, but they have it now. They really lack veteran depth on the offensive line. They just don't have any experience behind their projected starters. It's unfortunate, but because of the injuries, that's where they're at.
Really quick, there's a guy like from the Raiders, Gabe Jackson is a guy people are talking about, might be on the outside looking in for them. Would he fit that category of a veteran guy for them that they might be interested in?
He was, yeah, Josh. To start free agency, he was definitely on the block. That was my understanding, but I don't see that now. Now, I do know they drafted a kid named John Simpson. The Raiders did, you're talking about. Gabe Jackson's their starting right guard. Simpson is a guy that also went to Clemson with Kayvon Wallace, but he's a guy they eventually believe is going to replace Jackson, but I don't see that happening at all. I don't see them doing that now. I would be very surprised if that happened.
I want to dive into this offensive line mess because there were reports that, Jason Peters would want more money to play left tackle, and now they're trying Matt Pryor over there, who isn't really a left tackle, and then Doug Peterson speaks to the media. Well, we don't like to really move guys around. Well, you are moving guys around. You have Jason Peters at right guard right now. He is a Hall of Fame left tackle, so it's a little wonky at the moment. What are your thoughts on the current situation at the offensive line?
Yeah, it is not good. This is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, just a minute ago, about the issues with depth. Because of the Brandon Brooks injury, the Lane Johnson injury, though he's going to be ready, but because he's missed time, And obviously the Dillard situation, because he was going to be their left tackle, their depth has been depleted. They don't quite know if Pryor's going to be able to make it as the left tackle, but you're right. They've done that. I'm told through yesterday's practice he was their left tackle. I am very surprised that they're not doing Jordan Mailata. I don't quite understand it. Mailata is way more athletic. He's more gifted. The only thing that Pryor has over him is the experience. Mailata's he's never played in a regular season NFL game. He never played football in his life until 3 years ago. But he's a freak show. I'm told he had a good week of practice last week, actually really good. So you got it. But the thing is, the Eagles front office really believes in Jeff Stoutland. If this is what he wants, they're going to stick with it. Stoutland, if this is what he wants, you got to trust the guy. But they also, if it doesn't work, they've got Jason Peters to move from right guard to left tackle. And then they're going to have a decision on how they would handle the right guard position. It would be Pryor probably, but the bottom line is this is not good with what's happened here at left tackle.
Yeah, you said it's shocking that Mailata's not at left tackle. To me, it's just shocking that Jason Peters hasn't shifted over to the left side. I just question if this happens, let's just use a hypothetical, week 3, third quarter, and Andre Dillard went down then, is Jason Peters going to be sitting on the sideline go, well, I'm not playing left tackle. I don't get paid that type of money.
Hunter, they would have worked out. They would, between he and his they would talk to the agent, Vince Taylor, and say, look, here's where we're at with this. Here's what we're willing to do. What you can do is take the remaining $3.2 million, and you could, instead of having him he has to earn it. He's got per game roster bonuses and some other miscellaneous money, incentives to get to $6 million. You could just convert that to fully guaranteed money if he's going to be your left tackle. That's the choice that they have to make. We know Peters has a good relationship with the owner. We'll see how this goes. I believe, by the way, the story I'm told is correct, that if they're going to move him to left tackle, he's going to want more money. But the fact of the matter is, what's the money going to look like, and what is he willing to accept, and will the Eagles do it? We don't know that yet. It's just that the story's out there, and it's not happening yet, so we'll see what happens.
Adam, if you could give the audience an understanding of the timing of all the stuff we're talking about, because I know a lot of this is going to go down in a very staged manner. So for those out there who don't understand, how the deadline works, what happens after the deadline, and all that leading up to next week. So give everybody an idea of what actually the timetable is for all the stuff we're talking about. Yeah,
so it's 4 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Every team must be down to 53 players, whether they have 80, 79 like the Eagles because they cut Manasa Belli on Thursday. Whatever your team has, you have to get to 53 men. You can, by the way, as I said earlier, you can take some guys who you thought you would have to put on IR for the season. Well, you put them on IR, but you could bring them back after 3 games. And so they have, as I said earlier, the Eagles have at least 2 guys, if not more, that fit that role. And then Sunday at noon, players could be claimed off waivers. You'll see a bunch of players. I'm sure the Eagles will claim at least one player off waivers. 12 at noon, teams could claim players off waivers. Also, that's when you could set your 16-man practice squad. On the 16-man practice squad, 6 of those players, up to 6 of them, could be veterans. They're doing that this year only because of the COVID-19 situation. This is going to really help you. And then on game day, I guess you have till the night before. They haven't sent the language out. I haven't seen it yet. But on game day, you could add 2 players. You could go from 53 to 55. And the Eagles clearly are going to have to do that because they have issues right now, significant issues at wide receiver. Defensive line, depending on who's available. They don't know that yet, who's going to be available. So you could expect the Eagles to do that. So again, folks, Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, that's when you get to the 53-man roster. On Sunday at noon, that's when the Eagles could set their practice squad.
Who do you suspect would be some of the prime candidates for the Eagles with that practice squad who may be those candidates for those game day call-ups?
All right, so let me take it like this, Josh. These are the guys I think on the cut line. Deontay Burnett, who had a great camp, a flash player who was with them last year. He had to play late last season, you might remember. Quez Watkins, who's a 6th-round pick, who inconsistent in training camp, but they like him. Travis Fulgham, who's done great in this limited time that they claimed him off waivers from Green Bay. He's 6'2.5". He's a basketball player. He's now a receiver. He's number 6. He did a great job in the limited time that he had. He's a guy who could go to the practice squad. I don't see him making it. Raekwon Williams and Anthony Rush, one of them, if not both, will go to the practice squad if they clear it. If they're both cut, one of them will be cut. I don't know if both will. Casey Toohill, if he doesn't make it and he clears, Joe Osman, if he doesn't make it and he clears, he'll go to the practice squad. And then it's too hard to know. We'll talk about it next Thursday on my spot. I'll have a better idea about, because we don't even have an injury report yet. I'll have a better idea who will be and who won't be for Week 1 versus Washington next Sunday in Washington, by the way. But those will be some of the guys I think are on the cut line to keep an eye on who could wind up on the practice squad.
I'm certainly looking forward to it. Football is just around the corner, as you mentioned earlier, a week away. It'll be Chiefs versus Texans, and of course, Eagles versus Washington, Week 1. And Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It just dropped this morning. For more insights on the 53-man roster and more, Jeff Mosher, Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast. And Adam Caplan joins us every Thursday on the Sports Bash Show on 97.3 ESPN. Adam, always appreciate the insights. Great stuff today.
Guys, thank you.
Of course, Football at 4 being brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now and they'll match your first deposit up to $250. Go to PlaySugarHouse.com and win real money with their sportsbook along with casino games from the comfort of your home. Must be 21 in order to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.